When J.D. Vance signed up for Donald Trump duty, and remember the word has two meanings, he signed up to follow his general into some of the most absurd arguments imaginable, and in today's breaking story, he picked a battle with Democrat VP nominee Tim Walz over military service that will prove to be a terrible political and social hill to die on. J.D. Vance is Yale educated, so he can't be a complete moron, but so far his efforts have been pretty moronic. He's also a Marine veteran who served in Iraq, so certainly he has respect for all military veterans and self-awareness that he serves under a draft dodger, right? Wrong. I don't think J.D. Vance studied strategy or read the book The Art of War because he just stepped into a minefield that will accelerate his path to self-destruction. And I'll share the mind-boggling clip in just a minute. First, let's set the stage and explore some other J.D. gems while speaking at a campaign stop in Michigan. He's in the awkward and unenviable position of having to parrot Donald Trump's words. And watch as he gets twisted up trying to repeat one of Donald's favorite words, fake, while being grilled by reporters on Kamala Harris's well-known biracial genetics.
President Trump made some attacks on Vice President Harris's biracial heritage. You're married to an Indian American woman. You have biracial children. How do you explain his attacks, and what is your reaction to his attacks as a father of biracial children?
Yes, sir. So I am the father of biracial children. Actually, my wife is here today. My kids are back home with my aunt today. And look, I was not bothered at all by what President Trump said, and I didn't take it as an attack on Kamala Harris's biracial background at all. What I took it as was an attack on Kamala Harris being a chameleon. She pretends to be one thing when she's in front of one audience. She pretends to be something else when she's in front of another audience. And I think he was observing the basic foundational reality that Kamala Harris pretends to be something different depending on which audience she's speaking to. Donald Trump said something very simple, totally inoffensive, but frankly, obviously true to me, which is that Kamala Harris is a chameleon. She's a fake, and the American people have to look at her record if we actually want to know how she stands on the issues, because her words simply can't be trusted. Sir.
How can you fake your race? If
I'm sorry?
She's both Indian and black, how can she fake her race?
She fakes who she is depending on the audience that she's in front of, and that's who she is, and that's who she's always been.
JD, do you know how stupid that sounds coming from a man who labels himself a hillbilly while begging for votes in middle America and a Yale graduate while trying to separate venture capitalists from their money in Silicon Valley? The disparaging clip about Tim Walz's military service is coming up in a few seconds, but first, watch as JD fumbles a question about anti-Semitism.
News. You have repeatedly suggested that the only reason Kamala Harris didn't pick Josh Shapiro to be her running mate is because of his Jewish faith. Do you have any evidence to support that assertion that a person who's married to a Jewish man is somehow anti-Semitic or bowing to anti-Semites?
Well, I reject the premise of the question. I did not say that that was the only reason that Kamala Harris didn't choose Josh Shapiro.
Did you see that? He did not deny it. His rebuttal was...
I did not say that that was the only reason that...
JD, please stop with the self-inflicted wounds. It's painful for all of us to watch. But it gets worse. Now for the disgraceful clip of J.D. Vance calling into question Tim Walz's military service.
Well, I wonder, Tim Walz, when were you ever in war? What was this weapon that you carried into war, given that you abandoned your unit right before they went to Iraq, and he has not spent a day in a combat zone? What bothers me about Tim Walz is the stolen valor garbage. Do not pretend to be something that you're not. And if he wants to criticize me for getting an Ivy League education, I'm proud of the fact that my mamaw supported me, that I was able to make something of myself. I'd be ashamed if I was him and I lied about my military service like he did.
This type of idiotic incongruence is what J.D. Vance signed up for under Trump. It's hard to imagine that a fellow veteran would go there, but he sold his soul to a person who is known for insulting veterans.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured.
And somehow the MAGA patriots have no problem with it. The best rebuttal I've seen to Vance's disrespectful words comes from journalist Mehdi Hassan, who tweeted this when sharing the video. Number 1, they are trying to swift-boat Tim Walz. That's a reference to then presidential candidate John Kerry's military heroism being questioned in 2004. Number 2, Walz served 24 years in the Army National Guard. J.D. Vance served for 4 years. Number 3, Vance went to Iraq as a combat correspondent or a military journalist. He did PR in the Marines. And of course, number 4, Donald Trump had fake bone spurs to dodge the draft. And now I want to know what you think. Stolen valor is actually a term that describes a crime that is prohibited by federal and state laws. And it's one of the worst things you can say about someone who has served. Do you think Vance went too far? And are you surprised that a fellow veteran would stoop so low? Or is it just par for the Mar-a-Lago course? Please comment below. I'm Dan, and together let's occupy democracy.